This is EWA Radio, the official podcast of the Education Writers Association, and I'm public editor Emily Richmond. Betsy DeVos is marking her first anniversary as the nation's education secretary, and it's been a year marked by protests, pushbacks, and policy changes. That's been particularly true on the higher education front, and joining us to discuss it is Adam Harris of the Chronicle of Higher Education. Adam, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So if Betsy DeVos has just finished her first year, and let's say we're looking at her transcript, what's her GPA?
Well, it has been a mixed bag. A lot of the policies that everyone thought that she would either be rolling back or be going after in her first year, she's done. They've taken another look at the gainful employment, borrower defense rules, two consumer rules, as well as Title IX and sexual assault policies on campuses. In terms of her taking on the things they may have set out to take on, she's done well in terms of actually going after those policies. Now, in terms of what people think of that, that's another question.
Adam, one of Betsy DeVos's first actions when she got to office was to pull back 2014 guidance from the Obama administration that spelled out how colleges and universities should be investigating and handling claims of sexual assault. Let's talk about that.
Yes, they issued another guidance while the rule goes through what's called a notice and comment period. But colleges have tended to stick with the Obama-era standard of proof, which was a lower bar than what the Trump administration has put in place for evidence of sexual assault.
We should point out that the Title IX and campus sexual assault rules are sometimes posited as partisan issues, but really there were people on both the left and right who felt that the Obama administration's guidance simply went too far. Is that right?
So the Obama administration really made their audience clear. They saw themselves as protecting students, whether that was through consumer rules, whether that was through their rules on sexual assault on campuses. That was their central tenet. What the Trump administration is really trying to do, they're setting out to, quote unquote, level the playing field and make rules fairer and make it a more equitable environment for colleges. However, when you do that, it kind of leaves students in the lurch.
While the Obama-era guidance was rolled back, that certainly doesn't mean that Betsy DeVos and her department are not paying attention to campus sexual assault cases. I think one good example is her very stern statement, which she issued in the wake of the Michigan State University scandal. Was that surprising to anyone?
Not necessarily, because the administration, regardless of what one may think of them, they have still been active in investigating cases of sexual assault. They are ostensibly trying to take another look at these policies. Now, by raising the standard of proof for these investigations, it has worried advocates for sexual assault survivors that it will have a chilling effect on college campuses for investigations and reporting of sexual assault.
When Betsy DeVos took office, not a lot was known about her. She was a billionaire school choice advocate who was really more well known on the K-12 policy side than higher ed. But certainly she has some ties, long-standing, to the for-profit college industry. That's been a source of tension in this first year. Tell us a little bit about that.
By rolling back a pair of Obama-era consumer rules last June, it sort of solidified in a lot of people's minds that this administration would be more friendly to for-profit colleges. And actually, an interesting thing has happened where you've seen the for-profit college industry lobby less as they've seen a friendlier environment in the Trump administration. What's interesting is the level in which the Education Secretary is able to affect policy on the higher ed side is a bit higher than it is on the K-12 side, whereas a lot of the criticism of Betsy DeVos has been that she's trying to kill public education, which there's not necessarily as much evidence for that. But one thing that she is trying to do is, get rid of some of these consumer rules or at least take another look.
Secretary DeVos has said that her policy efforts have also been hampered by her staffing levels and that it's taking a long time to get folks confirmed through Congress to come and work for her. What is the holdup there, and how is that impacting the higher education communities more broadly?
It's a mix of Congress not even putting her candidates on schedule for confirmation hearings, but it's also a case of the administration simply not putting up candidates. There are still several high-level positions that have yet to have a candidate nominated or even announce the intent to nominate. And that has created a lot of issues at the department where, you talk to career staff and they feel stretched thin. Even if you don't have the people in those positions, that work still needs to be done.
We're talking with Adam Harris of the Chronicle of Higher Education about Education Secretary Betsy DeVos's first year. Don't miss an episode of EWA Radio. You never have to. You can find us on your favorite podcast app. And don't forget to take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Your support and feedback will help us grow. Adam, what's it like for Betsy DeVos when she does show up at a college campus?
When Betsy DeVos shows up on college campuses at public schools, she's often greeted by protests, and they can range from just a couple of people with signs outside, as it was in Midland University and in Kansas, or it could be, hundreds and hundreds of protesters, as it was at Bethune-Cookman University in Florida. So it seems that there has been no slowing in the amount of protest in the first year of her tenure.
And this, of course, raises questions about the idea of free speech, open access on campuses to these kinds of protesters. And how is her department changing the way the federal government approaches those cases?
Interestingly enough, the Trump administration has been very active in free speech cases, usually through the Department of Justice. Last fall, Attorney General Jeff Sessions gave a speech at Georgetown where he basically laid out what he views as the administration's perspective on this, which is basically that colleges are stifling free speech. The administration has now filed at least 3 statements of interest in free speech cases, typically dealing with conservative students who have claimed that their free speech rights have been violated. The most recent was at the University of California at Berkeley.
Adam, under the Obama administration, community colleges got a lot of attention and a lot of special programming. Where's Betsy DeVos on community colleges? Why aren't we hearing more about those this year?
Well, what's interesting is that the Trump administration has put a heavy emphasis on career and technical education, and it is something that just about everyone supports. However, it's yet to be seen what that means practically.
Where are some areas that people may be saying Betsy DeVos has exceeded expectations?
I think that without the traditional grounding in, public service, she has been able to do a lot between taking another look at gainful, taking another look at borrower defense, taking another look at campus sexual assault policies. Whether you think positively or negatively about that, those are still a good amount of things that they were able to at least get the ball rolling on in the first year.
Do you have a sense that she's enjoying the work when you see her out at these events?
I do. She seems like she is actively trying to learn and understand, not having worked in public service, not having really worked in public education or higher education. There is a learning curve there, but it does look like she is trying to learn and that she does enjoy the work that she's doing.
What should we be watching for, Adam, as we go into Betsy DeVos's second year? What's ahead on the higher ed horizon?
One big story that will be coming up very soon is the possible re-recognition of ACICS. It's an accrediting council that lost its federal recognition in 2016 that has now said that it is reformed and is trying to come back again as an accreditor. This was an accreditor that was called by many a bad actor in the space and that it had very low standards and then there was rampant fraud. So I think one of the major things to look out for is what the education department decides on that front, and then also continuing to look at what they're doing with these consumer rules and campus sexual assault rules as they're going through the negotiated rulemaking processes for borrower defense and gainful employment and the notice and comment process for the campus sexual assault policies.
Adam Harris covers federal education policy for the Chronicle of Higher Education. He joined us from his office in Washington, D.C. Adam, thanks for making time for EWA Radio.
Thanks so much for having me.
That wraps up another episode for us. If you missed part 1 of our special on Betsy DeVos's first year in office, go back and listen. It's Allison Klein of Education Week talking about some of the K-12 implications of the past year. The mission of the Education Writers Association is to strengthen the community of education journalists and improve the quality of education coverage. For more than 70 years, EWA has helped reporters get the story right. Have a great week, and thanks for listening.